It's been on my mind a lot this fall, and I decided I would share it with you. Some of you have already heard it. If you have, don't spoil it later on, and you can take a nap or something. The other thing I wanted to say is that everyone remembers events a little bit differently. So if Loyal were here, he wouldn't tell it the same as I'm telling it, but we do agree on the major points. So I'm here, so I get to tell it my way. So, all right. About 20 years ago, we moved to northern Minnesota, and we moved about 2 hours, give or take, south of International Falls. It gets cold up there, and it's called the edge of the wilderness. We finally found a rental spot, and it was near a town called Effie. It's not on the way to anything that any of our friends went to. And we lived about 6 miles from that town. There was 90 people in the town. And the only thing else there was a convenience store and gas station. And once a year they had a rodeo. So I'm going to describe the setting a little bit. Off that main road, we lived off of a dead-end road, and at the end of the dead end was a river. Our house had fields in front of it and sat back about a third of a mile from the road. I know because we shoveled it. But behind the house was some open areas and an old barn that was falling down, and behind that there was a whole row of woods that went all the way to the river. And sometimes in the year, there was a little tiny creek that went through there. Well, it's quite a big change for us to move there. Pretty isolated. If any cars drove down the road, we were kind of wondering who it was, because if they came down that road, they were either lost or they really wanted to visit us. We were attending a home fellowship, and there was another family there that had 4 boys, and the oldest was about Loyal's age. And this family was a true Minnesota family. I mean, the parents both grew up in Minnesota. They fished, they hunted, they built their own log cabin, they scraped the logs and built it, you know. And their kids had spent most of the time in the woods as well. So the boys knew all about hunting, and they had all the equipment and all that kind of stuff. So the oldest boy, Joshua, is talking to Loyal a lot about all this stuff. And Joshua had a particular interest in trapping. And he was going to trap that fall and make a lot of money, probably, he thought. And he had magazines about it. And he was investing on all the equipment where he could trap beaver and underwater and all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, we just moved. And we just moved into this house. And we don't have extra money. Loyal doesn't have any money. And we just moved from the Seattle area. So we don't know anything about trapping or any of this stuff. So we're listening to Loyal as he comes home and tells us all about trapping and brings home magazines and all this kind of stuff. Well, we have our first snow. This is about mid-September. And a friend comes to visit. We had met this fellow in Washington State, and during the time that he lived in Washington, he lived at the Hermit, and he did a lot of trapping and hunting and stuff. Now he lived in Indiana, back home, and on a farm. And he called and said he wanted to come for a visit. Well, it didn't take John very long to figure out that Loyal was quite interested in trapping. And so John came and talked to us and asked if it would be all right if he gave Loyal some supplies. We said, okay. So one of the things he gave us was a trowel. I brought this because maybe some of the younger kids don't really know what a trowel is. But the trowel that you use for trapping is got a lot longer handle, and it has a narrower metal part, and it's quite sturdy. It's not like flimsy like that one is. And also, he had 3 old traps. They aren't quite like the one that Lloyd brought. We borrowed from a friend, but very similar. And Lloyd's going to show you how you set it. We don't really know much about this still. So the idea is, John said, okay, here's the traps. And now we have to do a set. And a set means you take it out in the woods And you use your trowel and you dig some dirt and get it all stirred up, and you kind of bury this trap down in the dirt. Then you have a chain. You can't see it right now. It's about to open.
What you don't want to do is get your fingers in the works.
This is, yeah, so anyway, you can see that there's a chain on there with a ring, and if you trap an animal, you don't want it to run away with your trap. So you have to stake the chain down, and you want to go out in the woods and look for a place where maybe there's animals have been, so that you can see where they might go, so that you might be able to catch them. And so you have to dig up the dirt and stake down your trap, and then kind of cover it up and pat the dirt down, and then you have to put leaves and branches over it and try to make it look exactly like it looked before, so the animal will suspect that you were messing around with that and set a trap for them.
One of the keys is to let your trap get pretty natural, like this one is. Doesn't got a lot of stuff that'll distract the animal.
Okay, so if you're going to trap, there are rules. And so we had the Department of Natural Resources there, the same as for you would be like a game warden. And they have books, and you have to read all the rules and all that stuff. And in our area, there were maps. There was only certain animals that you could take at certain seasons, and you weren't supposed to take very many of certain animals. You had to get tags for those, just like you would for deer. And so there was a lot of discussion, checking the maps to see if the woods where we live would be we could trap some of those animals. So Loyal went to the station and got the tags that he possibly might need. And we had these traps set up. Well, the rule is that you have to check these at least once a day between the hours of sunrise and sunset at that time. And it also said that if you were under 12, you must be accompanied by an adult. At least that's the way we read it and understood it. So Lloyd was working in a manufacturing plant at that time, 60 hours and more a week. And he was usually gone before early morning and not home until after dark. That kind of only left one adult. And I knew nothing about trapping or doing this kind of stuff, but you do what you have to do for your kids. So, okay, so that meant that every morning or sometime during the day, we had to get all dressed up because it's cold and go out there. All right, Loyal has 3 traps, and they're kind of in a row. So we'd go out to the open area, and instead of me walking down every single one, I would wait here. And he would call to me and say, okay, this one, whatever, and then we'd hike back home. And I'd be standing there trying to stay warm and praying. And if you haven't lived in the North Woods, you don't know that trees talk. And when they get really cold, they creak, and it sounds like gunshots, and it sounds like the top of the tree is going to fall off, and you wonder if your kid's okay, and that branch just did fall off, or what. And it makes me think of the verse in Isaiah about how the trees of the field will clap their hands. I didn't know that trees can talk, and so that kind of was interesting. So anyway, I'd be waiting there for Loyal. So we checked the traps. If we weren't going to be there during the day, we had to unset them. Well, for about 2 weeks, we checked, maybe longer, nothing. And we knew that we were the first people to live on that road and be around that woods for a long time, and that there must be wildlife there. And so it was kind of odd that we weren't catching anything. Well, one Saturday morning, Lloyd went to an early prayer breakfast, and he was going to come home, get his stuff, and go back to work. And so Loyal and I got all ready, went out there, and I'm standing there waiting for him, trying to stay warm, and he comes just barreling up, screaming and saying, Mom, I caught something, but I don't know what it is. And I'm like, okay, and he's like, hurry up, come on. So I go down there and look, and well, sure enough, he caught something, but I didn't know what it was either. And I said, well, Dad will be home soon, and maybe he will know what it is. So by the time we got back to the house, Dad showed up, And I said, well, you got to go out there and see what it is. I mean, we don't know. So he went out there, and he came back, and he said, I think it's a, anybody 12 and under, what do you think it was? What? Huh? No, not a skunk.
Bird.
No, not a bird.
Something big.
Was it something big?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sort of, not terribly big.
A little bit, about the same size as a fox, but not in that family.
Mole.
No, not a mole.
Leland.
No. Not a badger. No, not a wolf.
Beaver.
Beaver, no. It was a fisher. And a fisher looks a lot like a fox, about the same size, a little bit smaller, and a little lower to the ground. It's actually related to the martins and the weasel family, and is pretty dark fur. And Loyal actually did have 2 tags for trapping fisher, but we didn't really know anything about it, obviously. So then we're like, okay, what are we supposed to do now that we caught it in the trap? We realized that it was not in season. And I'm asking Lloyd, what are we supposed to do? And he's trying to get his lunch and get out the door. And he's like, I don't know, call the DNR as he goes out the door. And I'm like, okay, I'll call the DNR. And I said, we don't really know what we're supposed to do. Are we supposed to kill this animal? Are we supposed to release it? What are we supposed to do? And the guy was kind of crabby, and he just said, well, release it. Like I was really stupid. And I said, okay, and we hung up. So I looked at the boys and I said, there is no way we are going out there releasing that animal. It's a fierce animal, and we aren't going to do that. And they looked at me, and then I said, and in the same time, I'm thinking, that's not right. You can't do that. That's really cruel. Lloyd won't be home till who knows when. It'll be dark, and you can't leave the animal out there. And so I said, well, okay, I don't know. Maybe we should try to release it, but I have no idea how we're supposed to release the thing. And Loyal said, well, John kind of told me. I think I kind of know how to do it. I said, you do? He said, yeah. I said, well, how do we do it? He said, well, we got to have a piece of pipe, and we have to have a rope. I said, you know where there's any pipe and where there's any rope? And the boys were like, yeah, we know where some stuff is. And I go, okay. I said, but before we go out there, we're going to pray. So we prayed, and in the prayer I said, God, will you please shut that animal's mouth, just like you did for Daniel in the lion's den. So we get all bundled up. Leland's got a couple of clubs. Loyal's got a stick. And we have this pipe. And you have to thread a rope through the pipe with a loop on one end. And then you can control the rope on the other end. So we go traipsing out there. And Loyal said, okay, Mom, here's what we're going to do. Now I'll help you get the noose over the animal's head, and you hold it and kind of pull it out to the side so it won't bite anybody. But this pipe's only like 2.5 feet long, and I'm like, it's right here by me. Okay. So we got it over his head, and he said, now don't choke it, Mom. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to loosen the And so Loyal's over here, and he's going to step on and open the trap. He tried, and he couldn't get it. He tried again, and he couldn't get it. He said, Mom, I can't get it. I'm thinking, well, there's nobody else out here. I don't know what we're supposed to do. And so I just yelled, and I said, Jesus, help us. And Loyal just gave a mighty shout and stepped on it and somehow got it open and got his stick in there. So then Loyal's like, get back, everybody get back. And so then he helped me, and we shook the rope off the animal's neck. And during that whole time, the animal never opened its mouth. It really didn't move. And after we took the rope off, it just looked at us for like a second, like it was frozen, and then it just took off like a shot. We said, well, thank you, Lord. And it's like, okay, well, and we kind of pulled ourselves together, got in the house, and thought, well, I guess that wasn't too bad. I mean, And, it's Saturday, so we had chores, and everybody kind of went about their day. Later that afternoon, I got a phone call. And he said, is this the lady who was going to release that fisher? And I said, well, yeah, of course this is the game warden, so I'm like, why is he calling me? I don't know what's going on, and did I do something wrong, And he said, did you have any trouble with it? And I said, well, not really. I mean, I kind of explained what we did and stuff, and he said, you sure you didn't have any trouble with it? I said, well, no, not really, and stuff, and I said, and he said, well, did you take a picture? I think I just moved. I have no idea even where my camera is. I didn't tell him that. I said, well, no, we didn't take a picture. Well, did you take a video? Like, I don't even own a video camera. But no, sir, we didn't take a video. He said, well, wait till I tell the rest of the guys back at the station that some lady and her 2 kids just released a fisher. The last fisher I released tore that tree all up and everywhere, was trying to tear me up, and it took me forever to release it. And I said, well, sir, I think God gets the credit for this one, because we prayed and he shut the animal's mouth, and it didn't hurt us. I mean, it just, whatever. After that, he really didn't have much to say, and we got off the phone. So that was kind of the end of the story, but it encourages me that the God of the Old Testament and of Daniel is still our God today. So I hope it will encourage you. So.
This is a, you all see this? This is a foot trap, and anymore they have a different kind of trap, and it was popular in those years. It's a conibear trap, and it kills the animal right away. This one is just for catching it. I'll set it out here so you can see what it is. And then this is attached to a peg or around a tree or whatever else, and the animal's stuck in this until something